Salutations everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jon Campea and this is our open spoiler discussion video of Solo. Now, big heads up warning if you didn't get it from what I just said, and if you didn't get it from the title of this video, this thing's chock full of spoilers. We are speaking openly and clearly about the Solo movie. So if you haven't seen the Solo movie and you don't want it spoiled for you, just add this video to your favorites list, come back and check it out a little bit later. If you don't care, that's fine, but just don't say that you weren't warned. So we're going to talk about Solo here for the next, 45 minutes or so, and talk about all of our thoughts, the good things, the bad things, the confusing things, the questions, the possibilities, all that kind of stuff, talking about Solo. Now, should be mentioned, this is being recorded on Sunday when the box office results just came out, and Solo took a 65% drop on week 2 with nothing significant opening up against it. Now, if say, let's say Jurassic World 2 opened this weekend, and Solo took a 65% drop. That's no big deal, kind of expected. But with nothing significant opening against it, no bueno. That's not good. That's not good at all. So now mostly what this video is going to be is me taking your questions and comments and replying to them, giving you my thoughts. But let me start off with this. If you guys watched my original non-spoiler review of Solo, you guys know that I thought the first act was a little bit clunky. There are parts of the first act that are a little bit clunky. Let me tell you one of the things that happened to me right at the beginning of the movie, though. I was annoyed right at the beginning of the movie, and here's why. Ever since Rogue One, I have been saying, and I love Rogue One, but I complained about this in Rogue One as well. Star Wars, if it's a Star Wars movie, give it an opening crawl. You put the opening crawl in video games, you put the opening crawl in comic books, you put the opening crawl. Why do you not put the... Oh, it's to differentiate the episodic movies from the standalone movies. No. The story differentiates between the episodic movies and the standalone movies. That doesn't. You might as well say, well, don't put lasers in it, because that's what differentiates... No. Saying that the opening crawls would differentiate it is ridiculous. That's absolutely preposterous. If that's the thing you're relying on to differentiate between the episodic movies and the anthology movies, you have bigger problems to solve. And here's the thing that really bugged me about Solo, is that Solo starts, right? And it starts with opening text. If you're going to start a Star Wars movie and you're going to start it by telling some background through text, why not just do it as an opening crawl? It's the thing that just screams to you, this is a Star Wars movie. Even if it's not an episodic movie, whatever. That bugged me in Rogue One, but it especially bugged me in Solo since they started off Solo with text. It is a lawless time in the galaxy. The ruthless, I can't even remember the name, Proxima, that's what, the evil gangster Proxima doing that. If you're going to, why not just go opening crawl? If you're going to start the movie by telling some narrative with text anyway. Anyway, that's not an objective problem with the movie. That's just a subjective problem I have with it. But whatever. So then they get into it, and like I said, the bits of the first act felt a little bit clunky to me. And after the clunkiness, it really found its footing. Now, the other thing about the clunkiness to me was the whole Proxima thing. Like, I dug the setup. Like, you're on Corellia. Han is like, if you want to use Aladdin vernacular, he's a street rat. You know, he's crawling his way out of that. I get all that, but why does Proxima need to be this giant Dungeons and Dragons snake creature that lives in water and is somehow got some kind of vampirism that she can't be in the sun? That didn't make a lot of sense to me. And it just felt odd. It just felt a little, not bad, but just that first opening few moments started odd. Now, once they get into that opening pod race, when he's running from them, they're in the speeders, him and Qi'ra are in the speeder and they're running from them. I started to feel the energy of a Star Wars movie. I like the part in the spaceport where they're trying to sneak out before they get caught, bribing the Imperial official. I liked the spaceport scene because it felt very gritty. It felt like a gritty Star Wars movie at that point. Not so big on how Han got his last name. Like, I didn't go to bed not being able to get to sleep because it bothered me so much, but it didn't work for me. it's like, it seemed kind of like, why would Han keep that name? Why would Han keep calling himself Solo after that? I don't get it, but whatever. So I wasn't too big on that. But once you got past that part, that to me is where the movie really started to pick up steam. Whether it's him in the battlefronts, giving reference to the fact that he was in the Imperial Naval Academy, he was kicked out. The heist aspect with Bennett started to work into, and that's when the movie really started to find its footing for me. And that's when the movie really worked for me on not all cylinders, but the vast majority of cylinders, and I really dug it. From that part, I thought it was fun. I thought it was exciting. I thought Alden was a great Solo. I thought Glover was a great Lando. I thought they nailed the chemistry between Luke and Chewbacca. I thought they nailed that pretty well. So, and then we'll talk about, I'm sure some of you guys are going to want to talk about the Darth Maul appearance and all that kind of stuff. So, without any further ado, let's dive into it here. And we start off with the first one today from Zombitron5678, who says, okay, how good, I knew we'd go right into it. How good was that reveal? Yes, I was spoiled by it, but seeing Ray Park and Sam Witwer back brought chills. Enjoyed the film overall. Here's the neat thing, and this is why I really enjoyed the reveal. Except for him lighting the lightsaber part. What the hell was that? Why does, like, is that just like Darth Maul? Is that a thing that if I'm talking to anybody before I say goodbye, I got to light up my lightsaber? Hey, don't forget, I have a lightsaber. That seemed weird to me, but I did love the reveal. So the reveal happens, and that there's a real tie-in for anybody who remembers the Extended Universe comics, like when Sidious sent Maul after Black Sun and all that kind of stuff. There are tie-ins to what they did in the reveal, even all the way back into the Extended Universe stuff. So on that level, I really appreciated it. And knowing that Maul survived the fight against Obi-Wan, knowing that he is still alive at that point because of stuff in the Clone Wars, to me, it didn't only make sense. I thought it was very clever. That, of course, it's Darth Maul running this thing. Of course it's Darth Maul. Like, I really liked it. Again, except for the part where he's talking to this little girl, vroom, gets his lightsaber, turns it on. We're going to be working together very close. It's like, what was the point? I didn't get that. But I did love the reveal. And it was funny because I bumped into, and I chatted with Sam Witwer afterwards. And I was like, I had no idea. He said, dude, like I was talking to Sam, who does the voice of Darth Maul in the movie. He goes, you have no idea. He goes, we weren't allowed to tell anybody. Like nobody. He goes, you have no idea how hard it was just to keep quiet about that. Because he goes, I've been so excited about it, but I had to stay completely quiet about that, which is really, really neat thing. So yes, I did enjoy the reveal at the end. Notwithstanding the stupid lightsaber ignition, which made no sense. But aside from that, I quite like the reveal. Okay, let's see here. Next up, Trojan of Narnia writes, my problem was Alden didn't always feel like Han to me. Oh, he did to me. He absolutely did to me. He sold me as Han about by the time we got 5 minutes into him now being in the Empire and being in the military and that battle scene that's happening, from the start of the movie to that point, boom, I was sold. I was completely sold on him. And then a little lever in my head switched that this is Han Solo now. This is Han Solo. And whatever he does is what Han would do because he had become Han. So that's cool that it didn't work for you. It's unfortunate he didn't work for you like all the time. To me, he did. I mean, that's one of the things, amongst some of the other issues I had with the film, that wasn't one of them. I thought Alden really, really crushed it. I really did. Zombitron5678 writes, Chewbacca is literally the only one not to portray him. Also, every time in A New Hope, Luke says he trusts Han, I imagine he's thinking back to Qi'ra, good guy. Yeah, maybe. I mean, when you do these prequel-esque stories, these backward timeline stories, sometimes it's neat when they do something that will make you look at a scene in one of the current movies a little differently. And you're right. That does, looking back to scenes like that in the original trilogy, you could probably now see Han in the back of his head going back to Qi'ra calling him the good guy and things like that, right? So, yeah, I thought that was interesting too. That was an interesting little bit. Murray Reich writes, did you like the Maul surprise? Came out of nowhere, but I liked it. Does this confuse the average movie-going audience who have only seen the movies? Does Lucasfilm believe the goers will see the TV series? No, probably not. Would it be a little bit confusing? Yeah. But I think any surprise is going to also be a bit confusing. Every surprise is going to be a bit confusing. And I think the confusion just adds, to be honest, I think people who never saw the Clone Wars TV series probably got the biggest surprise of all. Like, they're the ones, like, people who don't even realize in canon Darth Maul is still alive at that point. So people who don't realize that, it's an even bigger surprise. Like, wait, I thought he was dead. Like, so I think it added to it probably for a lot of people. Now, the person I really want to talk to about this is my mom, because my mom's the one who got me into Star Wars. She's, of course, if you guys have been following me for the last 2 days, my mom's in the hospital. She had emergency double bypass surgery the other day, but it went great. So I'm just waiting for her to get out of ICU and the rehab so I can go visit. And I'll probably be taking a week off my channel at that time, but I'll get to that in a bit. But my mom, who's a huge Star Wars fan, hasn't watched any of the animated stuff. So I'm actually very much looking forward to her and being able to sit down with her to watch this movie with her, because I want to see her reaction to the Darth Maul thing. But my initial gut reaction is, like I said, I think people who didn't follow the TV series or the animated stuff, I think these are the people who are going to be even more surprised and shocked at his appearance. Because those of us who knew he was alive were surprised, but it's not that big of a surprise. I mean, we knew he was still alive, kicking around there somewhere in the universe right now. But to people who didn't realize that, I think there's a little bit of a drop. They're like, woo! Like seeing him there. And the fact that they got Sam Witwer to do the voice, and the fact that they got Ray Park to come in and play the role, I thought that was all great. I liked it. Except, again, for the lightsaber ignition. That was ridiculous. They shouldn't have thrown that in there. ZOMG Ruler writes, that shower scene with Han and Chewie is so weird. It is weird, but it is one of, all 3 times I've seen the movie, the camera shots on Han's feet, and you can tell he's in the shower. And then, boom, boom, Wookiee feet come in. Every audience that I saw with, maybe your audiences were different, but every audience I saw that with got a huge laugh. Huge laugh at that scene. I thought that was a very effective gag. It worked for me. Let's see. Murray Reich writes, I didn't like that Han got his last name from an Imperial. I wasn't so big on that either. Didn't he got his name from birth? Kind of reminded me of Mario, Super Mario Brothers. Yeah, I didn't like it either. I didn't think that was necessary. It adds a very odd twist into the canon about how Han got, and again, it just begs the question, why would he keep that name? He would keep a name that an Imperial gave him? That doesn't seem to make sense to me. So, and I honestly, I think you guys may make me remember a couple of more things, but the lightsaber ignition and where he got his name from, not to mention the opening credits stuff, those are probably some of my biggest what moments. Like that doesn't make any sense to me sort of moments. And so I'm with you. I didn't dig the way he got his name. It seemed a little too cheesy to me, but whatever. Not the end of the world. Jake C. writes, any more anthology films after an $84 million opening? Oh, yes, because the last anthology film made over $1 billion. Let's not forget that. One bump in the road is not going to make them stop their overall plan. If this was Warner Brothers, maybe it would, but Disney is not a reactionary company. They'll look at this as, oh, okay, this is going to be the first one we put out that we don't make $1 billion. All right, so they'll keep going. Now, if it becomes a pattern, that's different. But a lot of people have been asking me, do you think with the $84 million opening, do you think, and it just took a 65% drop, do you think like with a $29, $30 million second weekend, despite that there was no serious competition opening against it, do you think that will cancel Boba Fett? Do you think that will cancel their Obi-Wan plans? And honestly, no, I don't think it will. I think it'll make them stop and have some conversations. But again, Disney is not a reactionary company. They don't go, oh no, one thing didn't work. Oh, let's change everything. They're not that type of a company. So I think they will move ahead with their plans. And if a pattern emerges, then they may rethink overall strategy stuff. But right now, no. Again, like an 84 million, should we not do that? Well, the last one they did made over $1 billion. So you got to keep that in mind as well. So no, I don't think it's going to change their plans too much yet. Randall Cartwright writes, glad you ended up doing this discussion. I'm loving the standalone movies. It's giving a whole new, fresh perspective when watching the originals. I mean, when done right and when firing on all cylinders, it does. Rogue One certainly did that, at least for me. I adore Rogue One. I think, like, for me, my list of ordering the Star Wars movies, you got your original trilogy. Nothing's come close to the original trilogy yet. But after the original trilogy is The Force Awakens, then I think Rogue One, then I think Solo, then I think Last Jedi, and then the prequels and the Clone Wars animated stuff, like somewhere way down here in the sewer. But yeah, I mean, I think they have some have hit better than others, but I am enjoying. But Rogue One especially adds more to. I mean, you watch Rogue One and then immediately put in A New Hope, and it's like a new viewing experience, and I have always appreciated that. That's worked really well for me. Let's see. Murray Reich writes, as much as many of us, especially you, don't want to keep going back in the saga, but since they opened the door for Maul being back, they've got to finish up his character. I don't want to read it in a book. Oh, they don't have to finish up his character. No, they don't. I mean, it would be nice, but if it doesn't make business sense, they won't do it. Here's the thing. You know how I just said that Disney isn't really a big reactionary thing? The plans they have in stone, like I think the Obi-Wan movie is in stone. I think the Boba Fett movie is in stone. That kind of stuff they're not going to change. A Solo 2, I think, is something they were open to doing. They had contingencies ready to do a Solo 2 if Solo was as big as they were hoping it would be, but it didn't. So I don't think I don't think we're going to see a Solo 2. I really don't. And I don't think they're going to continue on with that Maul appearance. Just because he appeared doesn't mean you have to now do a movie about it. Would it be nice? Sure. I would like to see it. But if it doesn't make any business sense, then you can't do it. And as of right now, who knows what will happen in the next few weeks, but as of right now, you just can't make a business case for doing Solo 2. You cannot make a solid business case for doing Solo 2. So I think that Maul thing, I don't think we're ever going to see that pursued. I mean, maybe there'll be a reference in an Obi-Wan movie. Maybe they'll do something somewhere, but really, I think that last little appearance is going to be what we get from it. And then they can do the rest of the stuff in novels. But again, there's just no good business case to make an argument to do a new movie just so you can do that story. Ben Rayner writes, I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love it, but I don't think they'll do it. Ben Rayner writes, loved Maul, but do you think it's worth the risk of confusing 90% of the audience who thought he died? No, yeah, it's totally worth it. Like, it doesn't, like, again, a little bit of confusion isn't all that bad. A little bit of confusion can add to the what? And get them asking questions, they can find stuff out. So again, I think the people who didn't even realize, who didn't know that Darth Maul is still alive, like a lot of us already knew Maul is alive during this time period. But there are a lot of people who didn't. And I think those are the people who were even more surprised than we were. So yeah, and it was a last little thing. And if it confused some people, great. It's not confusing because it doesn't make sense. See, that's the thing. Sometimes movies do things that are confusing because it doesn't make sense. This makes sense, just not everybody's in on how it makes sense, and it drives them to want to find out how. So no, I don't think there was any detriment, honestly. I honestly don't think there was any detriment to that at all at the end. That's just my personal opinion. You may differ, and that's totally fine. But yeah, I didn't think it had any negative effects. Masters Young writes, maybe unpopular opinion, but I think Glover's portrayal of Lando is a little over the top sometimes. I don't know. I mean, any more over the top than what he is in Empire at times? Hello, what have we here? Truly you belong with us among the clouds. Like really? You thought Glover was a little bit more over the top than that? I don't know. I mean, that's the thing about film. It's all subjective. It hit you that way. I appreciate that and I respect that. It didn't hit me that way. I thought he took it. If anything, I was afraid that Glover wouldn't push that envelope far enough. That's the one thing I was afraid of. But I feel like he did. But I certainly don't feel like he overstepped it. I thought he stayed within any parameters that, Billy D gave us with the character in Empire. Because if you go back and watch Empire, Billy D, man, and that's what the character called for. He laid it on pretty thick at times, and that's what the character called for. That's what makes him such a special character. I honestly didn't feel like Donald Glover went anywhere past what Billy D did. But again, it did for you, and I respect that. It didn't for me, though, on that level. So I just gotta say that up front. All right, let's move on here. Ben Rayner writes, hate how Han got his solo name. Oh, I agree. Well, let me take that back. I don't hate it, but it didn't work for me. Does not work for me. Again, the biggest thing I have with it is, okay, that happened, but I just don't see Han Solo, especially knowing how much he hates the Empire, would keep the name the Empire gave him. I just don't see how that makes sense. So while I do not hate it, it didn't keep me up at night tossing and turning, worrying about it, but it didn't work for me. I just don't feel like that part made sense. And it was a little too on the nose. It's like, Solo, huh? Well, you're here by yourself, so we'll call you Solo. Like, that part didn't work for me. Not at all. I didn't hate it, but it didn't work for me. All right. Mason Kackman writes, never saw Rebels or the Clone Wars, so the Darth Maul reveal was really confusing to me. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be like, wait a minute, what? Time out. This guy's alive? I'll be honest with you. There's a part of me that's a little bit envious of people who did not know he was alive. Because I think then that scene for me would have hit me even harder. But because I know he's alive in this timeline, because I know of the crime underworld connection that Maul has, especially when you go into the EU mythologies and stuff like that, it all kind of made sense to me. But the fact that it made so much sense to me took away a little bit of the surprise, even though it was still a surprise. But yeah, I think there are a bunch of people that will catch them off guard going, wait a minute, what? But again, there are two different types of confusion. One, there's confusion because something doesn't make sense. Then there's confusion because you don't see the whole picture. Many movies have left audiences confused because they didn't make any sense. When you get the whole picture, the Maul thing makes perfect sense. But you just didn't have the whole picture, so that's fine. So I can live with the movie causing confusion if it's causing confusion because people just didn't know the whole picture yet. When there's confusion because something doesn't make sense, that's a little bit more detrimental to me, in my opinion, at any rate. All right, Ben follows up with, Enfys identity was confusing to me. They made it seem like we knew what character before, and we've never met her. Oh, I didn't feel that way. I think they were setting it up to be a surprise that it was a girl. And I'll be honest with you, I knew it was a girl I knew Enfys Nest was a girl about a year ago. I had somebody I know who let me know about that. I wanted to do a story on that. I wanted to do a video on it. And I decided, is that a spoiler? Because remember, I hadn't seen Solo. I just knew, there's this character we've seen who's kind of being set up as a villainous, as an antagonist in the film. And it's a girl. I didn't know specifically which girl, but I knew it was a girl. And I thought about doing a video on that this character, like when the trailer started coming out, this character is actually a female character. It's going to be a woman. But I thought, since I don't know the movie, is that just a little bit of information? Or is that would that be a spoiler? Does the movie set it up that it leaves it as a mystery until it's revealed she's a girl? If it's a little bit of information, that's fine. I can do a video about it. If it's something that the movie itself sets up as a big reveal near the end, then it would be a spoiler and maybe I shouldn't do that. So I'll be honest with you. I got on the horn. I contacted my rep at Disney. And I said, hey, I've found out this. And I told them that I found out that Enfys Nest was a female character. I said, so my question for you is this just a piece of information that gets revealed early on in the film? Or is this something that's set up that it could be considered a spoiler if I let the information out? And they let me know it would definitely be a spoiler if you let the information out. So I made that decision then at that point to not do the video. Could have got a lot of hits, because anything Star Wars related with a solid piece of information that is verifiably true could, but I didn't want to be that guy that spoils things for people just so I can get some hits. So I didn't reveal it. But I never got the feeling either from the movie or in advance of the movie that it was somebody we all know. Like, I never got that feeling, and I certainly didn't get that feeling watching the movie. I just thought this Enfys Nest was a dude, or at least that's what I would have thought. And it's just some person under the mask, and we'll see who it is, but it's not going to be a surprise other than the fact that it's a girl. So you may not be alone in that, Ben. I mean, maybe it did set it up in such a way that some people felt like it was going to be somebody we would know and recognize. Maybe Enfys Nest is Darth Maul. But yeah, I never got that feeling myself, but maybe the only reason I didn't get that feeling is because I always knew it was a girl and wasn't anybody that we knew anyway. So maybe there's that. Ben Rayner writes, L3 didn't work for me, not a fan of her story. Well, she doesn't really have a story per se. She's a character. A short-lived character. I kind of like what they used her character for, to be honest with you. Although there are moments it got a little bit irritating. But I like the fact that they made her a little bit irritating so the human characters, in particular Lando, can roll their eyes at her. Like, the one scene, the scene that really epitomizes it was when L3's in the cockpit and Lando's going, oh, I've got to go do something. Do you need anything? And she looks at him and she goes, equal rights. And just the look of exasperation on Donald Glover's face and the huge eye roll he gives, I think was supposed to be elemental of what we, the audience, were probably feeling. And the fact that they set it up for Lando to give her that reaction, the fact that they're aware that, hey, the way we in the audience are probably reacting to her is probably how the characters in the movie are reacting to her as well. And I thought that was kind of funny. The scene that really worked for me with L3 that I thought was the absolute funniest was the scene between L3 and Qi'ra when they're alone in the cockpit of the Falcon. And they're talking about, what are you going to do about your little problem? That Han guy loves you. And, oh, I don't know if you noticed, but Lando loves me. And she's like, how would that work? And L3's like, it works. I don't know how they're going to explain that. I thought that scene was great. I thought that scene was great. But, yeah, and L3 had a few good lines here and there, but I could have done without the L3 character. Yeah, I could have done without the L3 character. Although I will say this. The L3 character set up one of Donald Glover's finest moments to me in the movie, which was him being like with the suave, debonair Lando fades away when something he cherishes, L3. Like, we can be annoyed by L3, but that was his partner. And his partner just died. And that gave Donald Glover the opportunity to, I think, give his best moment of performance in the movie. He's Lando, but the guard's down right now because he's heartbroken. And I thought that was great. But yes, there are many ways that I could have done without the L3 character as well on top of that. Let's see. Hector Jeter writes, no R2 or 3PO. Glad they didn't force it in there. Yeah, me too. One of my big fears going into Solo was that they would shoehorn in a cameo by R2 and 3PO. And while I love R2 and 3PO, I did not want to see them forced into this film as well. So I got to admit, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that they did not force that in there. No pun intended, but they didn't shoehorn those cameos in there because they've done that in some other movies. They've really force-fed a couple of cameos that really didn't need to be there. I was afraid they would do that here, and they didn't, so that was a pleasant surprise. Let's see. Murray Reich writes, Val and Rio were killed off way too early in the film. Well, I disagree. Here's the funny thing. I thought so too when they died. When Val and Rio died, I felt like, whoa, that was really early. But the moment the movie moved on, you realized, oh, no, they played their part. Their part in this story was done. If you didn't kill them off there, then their characters are dragging on in the story for no real reason. So while I thought the exact same thing at first, like when Val blows herself up on the bridge, I'm like, no, they didn't just do that. And then Rio dies. I'm like, no. Like, that was a bit of a waste. But then as the movie progresses, you realize, no, narratively, their part to play in this story was done. I guess we can move on. And so that's, in hindsight, I don't think they were killed off too early. I think they played the role they needed to play in the narrative. And then the need for them in the story was gone. So I felt very differently about that. So the second time I watched the movie, they died and I didn't feel it at all. Like I was like, yep, they died because this is the end of their story part. This is the end of their contributions to the story. This is where they die. And I felt a lot better about it afterwards. Now, again, for you, it's all subjective. It may still feel that way after you watch it a second or third time, but all I can do is tell you how it worked for me personally. All right. Vrinder Singh writes, Solo didn't quite work for me, although the rest of my family loved it. It had good moments, but no wow moment. Out of the newer films for me, it's ranked fourth. My favorite is Rogue One, then The Last Jedi, and The Force Awakens. Yeah, for me, it's ranked 3. Because I would put The Force Awakens above it, then Rogue One, then Solo, then The Last Jedi. So it would rank for 3 for me, so you're not too far off from me either. But I'm going to say, I am with you that there's no, like, that one big wow moment. Solo doesn't have it. And I think that's what makes it like, when you hear me talk about Solo personally, just as an individual moviegoer, it's a fun, entertaining summer adventure movie. But the thing that, there are a couple of things that prevent it from being a great motion picture. The lack of any really big individual wow moments. So though I did like it when they punched the hyperspace and Falcon getting out of the, whatever the space storm clouds were. I forget what they called that. But that worked for me quite well. That was a nice moment. There was a couple of Han and Chewie moments that were good. But no, you're right. For the most part, there was no big individual, truly memorable wow moments. And I think that's one of the detriments. And on top of the other things like why no opening crawl, why did he light the lightsaber, the guy giving Solo his last name. Like there are a few moments here and there that hold it down for me. But the biggest thing is not so much negative things, but the lack of some big positive things. There's lots of good positive things, but the lack of some big highlight moment, wow moments as you're putting it, I would agree with you on that. I think there are a couple of those that are missing. Let's see. BL Baller Boy writes, it's sad. Solo's clearly a good film. Hits every narrative and action beat. I don't know if it hits every narrative beat. All the other good films this year did. But the bitter, pessimistic connotations of critics, fans, constraints, reviews, perspective. No, Baller Boy, I think you just got to get your head around the fact that film is subjective. If it hits somebody in such a way that they didn't like it, it's not because they're a pessimistic critic or fan constraints or anything. It didn't work for them. I'm glad it worked that well for you. Clearly, the movie worked for me. I don't know that it's in my top 5 favorite films of the year right now, because the films I would put ahead of, it might be my top 5. The films I would put ahead of Solo right now are Quiet Place, which is the best movie of the year so far. To me, bar none, Quiet Place is easily the best movie of the year so far. And then the rest in no particular order, but that I would still put above Solo would be Infinity War. I'd put Ready Player One above it. I know I'm missing a couple off the top of my head. What are some other ones? Deadpool 2, I put ahead of it. Then maybe Solo. So Solo might be my top 5, maybe be in 5. Again, to me, in talking about it hitting every narrative beat, I don't know, like I said, that first act for me felt a little bit clunky. It felt a little clunky. It felt a little, what's the word? You know when somebody rolls out of bed and they just look wrong? You use the word disheveled. To me, the first act felt a little disheveled, at least until they got to that point where he meets up with Beckett and all that, and then everything else kind of falls into place for me. But there's that. And then there are parts in the third act that felt a little disheveled to me as well, from a narrative point of view. And then going back to what the previous thing said about the movie seems to lack any huge, big wow moments in it. Like Deadpool 2 has a couple of them. Infinity War has 4 or 5 of them. Ready Player One has got a couple of them. Quiet Place has a number of them. And it felt like Solo kind of lacked those big wow moments. So I maintain what I've always said about it. It is a enjoyable, exciting, fun summer adventure movie. That's what it is. It's got a bunch of the drawbacks that come with something like that, but that's what it is. And it works for me. It works quite well for me. I'm quite entertained. I'm looking forward to going to go watch it again, even though nobody else is, because this thing's tanking at the box office. But I'm looking forward to go seeing it again, because it's a good movie. But I would, and if it worked on every, like as you put it, narrative and action beat for you, that's awesome. Wonderful. It didn't quite do that for me. Even though I'm on the pro side of Solo, I would say it didn't quite do that for me. Not to that level. Let's see. Shamanth writes, I don't see a Solo 2 coming. Do you think they will continue the storyline they set up at the end in one of their other anthology movies with Maul and Qi'ra? No, I don't think so. I think that's baby is going out with the bathwater there. I think they set that thing up as a potential thing, but let's face it, where Star Wars as a story goes from there is not contingent upon what happens now with Maul and Qi'ra. What happens with Maul and Qi'ra has no effect on any of our understanding of all the future movies that come after it. Whether it's Rogue One or New Hope or Empire, like what happens at the end of Solo in no way affects our understanding of the other films. So it's not like, unless they continue on with this Maul and Qi'ra story, we won't fully understand what's going on in the rest of the universe. And actually, yeah, we will. I want to see it. I would love to see Ray Park and Sam Witwer get back in there and bring that character to life and all that kind of stuff. And I would love to see more about the underworld, the crime organization under Darth Maul. That's all great. I would love to see it. But I agree with you, Shamanth. I don't think they're going to do it. Certainly not in a Solo 2. And I don't think they're just going to tag it on to some other movie. Focus your other movies on what their stories are. Don't start tagging on side stories from other films. You know what I'm saying? So while I would love to see it, I don't think they will, and I don't think that would be good for those other individual movies. Just my thoughts. All right. Eric Blank writes, I just don't see how they're going to pay off the Maul reveal for audiences who have only seen the movies without retconning the Rebels episode or remaking it in the live action shot for shot. Well, again, I don't think they're going to do it at all. I mean, I think that's the answer to all this. I just don't think they're going to go anywhere with it. Now, if Solo had come out, made $125 million opening weekend, made $60 the second weekend, and went on to make $650 million, I would say, yes, they'll probably do a second one. I think at that amount of money, you've more than broken even. If you want to keep on with Solo, you can go ahead and make Solo. But the fact of the matter is they're not going to break even on this movie. They're not. They're going to lose money on this movie, which is inconceivable that a Star Wars movie loses money. But this is the first one ever, and it's going to lose money. And because of that, I do not see them, I just don't see them even picking up this story at this point. And like I said, narratively, it's not even vital. It doesn't feel like it's vital at all. So it's unfortunate. It leaves a dangling thread, but that's not the end of the world that you leave dangling threads. It's not like the rest of your movies are contingent upon being able to flesh out that story. So I think they'll be fine without it. Unfortunate, because I would love to see them use more Maul. I really would. Eric Blank writes, wouldn't it have been cooler, interesting, and less confusing for general audiences if it was Snoke instead of Maul? No, not at all. That would have been completely contradictory to everything. Because Snoke and the First Order are all about getting rid of lawlessness, about bringing order and stability. Remember, these are villains who think they're doing what's right for the universe, right? They want to bring peace. Of course, their idea by bringing peace is to quell all freedoms and stuff like that. But still, one of the main modus operandi of the First Order is getting rid of lawlessness, bringing order to the galaxy. For Snoke to have been the head of a crime syndicate, that would be, to me at any rate, maybe not for you, but to me, that makes zero sense. That would be absolutely contradictory to the little we know about Snoke and the fact that he was the head of the First Order, which was all about getting rid of lawlessness, bringing stability and peace and all that kind of stuff through the Justice, through oppression. But it was their goals nonetheless. So to me, that would have been absolutely contradictory to what we know about the character. So to me, it wouldn't have made... I mean, yeah, for a second, it's like, oh, that's Snoke, we recognize him. But remember I was talking about how there's confusion because we don't have the whole picture, but then there's confusion because it doesn't make sense? The confusion of having Snoke in there instead of Maul would be the confusion because it wouldn't have made any sense. It would have been contradictory to what we already know about the character. So, yeah, I don't think that would have worked. I don't think that would have worked at all. Let's see here. Where are we? Curtis Lopez. Curtis Lopez writes, what do you think of the theory that L3 was the one who told R2 in Empire that the hyperdrive was down? Well, I mean, depending on where they go from there, Lando said that L3 is part of the Falcon now. She's part of the ship now. So, since the Falcon told R2, that's not a theory. By definition, that is L3, because L3 is now part of the Falcon. So, it is a theory, sure, but it's not just a theory, it's fact. I mean, she's part of the ship. She merged with the Falcon. She and the Falcon are now one. So it's not just a theory. I mean, it's fact. I don't think the Falcon has and now this part is speculation on my part. I don't think there are two separate AIs operating within the Falcon. I think the Falcon and her became one. That's how I look at it, at any rate. That part's not fact. That part is speculation. But yeah, to me, at that point, saying the Falcon or saying L3 are just kind of interchangeable. So if the Falcon told R2, then by nature and by definition, L3 told R2. So yeah, I buy the theory completely. Let's see. Next one comes to us from Gerard C., who writes, do you think this is the end of Emilia Clarke's movie career after 2 disappointing franchise films? No, because you can't put any of it on her. Look, number one, she wasn't the main star in this film. So, and by the way, and Alden Ehrenreich, even though the movie isn't getting a lot of people out to see it, most people, even those who don't seem to like the movie, seem to appreciate Alden Ehrenreich. So even then, it's not going to hurt his career either. But no, look, it's like saying, well, that's too deep of a sports analogy, so I won't go there, because I think it'll go over a lot of people's heads. But no, I don't think this will hurt her film career at all. I really don't. It's not going to do her career any favors either. But no, because you cannot, that movie, and everybody knows, Terminator Genisys was a horrible movie regardless. It wasn't a horrible movie because of how she played her character. It's a horrible movie because it was a terribly written movie. That movie's terrible no matter who you have starring in those roles. And nobody avoided seeing Solo because Emilia Clarke was playing this other character. Makes no difference. So no, I really don't think this is going to hurt her stuff at all, especially with the final season of Game of Thrones coming up. So no, that's not going to hurt her at all. Let's see. John K. writes, don't think Han will face Maul. His lines in A New Hope regarding Force/lightsaber, hokey religion, ancient weapons wouldn't work if he faced a Sith Lord. Oh no, absolutely. No, you're 100% right. Even if they carried on the storyline, you'd never see Han facing Maul. He can't win, but on top of that, it would make no sense to the story because it would be contradictory to what we already know. Kind of the same reason why Snoke wouldn't have made sense appearing as the head of the crime organization. Wouldn't have made sense. It also wouldn't make sense for Han. So John K., you're absolutely 100% right about that. Let's see. Had a bit of a jump. Where'd John K. go? La la la. Sorry, more than I thought there would be. Hell of a lot more than I thought there would be. Here we go. John K. writes, unless maybe they'll continue Maul/Qi'ra storyline in Fett/Kenobi film, If they do continue to use him in any means, are they bound by the Rebels canon? Well, theoretically, yes. But I have started to question, you guys know this, I have been questioning Lucasfilm's commitment to canon ever since they started putting, like they said, the novels are canon. And then something in the novels happens that's contradictory to the movies. And then they go, well, it's canon in the books as long as it doesn't contradict the movies. And to me, you guys know I've gone off and on. It's like, that's not what canon means. Canon means it's canon. You know, your wife isn't sort of pregnant. She's either pregnant or she's not. Canon is canon or it's not canon. You don't get to say something is canon and then put a bunch of asterisks. Well, then it's not canon. So I have been questioning Lucasfilm's commitment to canon for a while now. You guys know this. At least anything above and beyond and outside of the movies. Clearly, they've shown cracks in the armor when it comes to the novelizations. It's not a big jump to go from that to one of the cartoon shows. So I'm not saying that they are rejecting canon from Rebels or any of the cartoon shows, but I'm also saying I don't believe they're as concretely committed to it as maybe they would have liked to have been a few years ago. Because I've seen cracks in their canon, and you guys know I've been calling their canon dedication into question over the past 6 months to a year. So I don't know. I mean, theoretically, they should be bound to anything that happens in Rebels is canon. Because they say the show is canon, therefore anything that happens in that show should be ironclad in concrete. So they should. Whether or not they will be bound to it, I'm not really sure at this point. Okay, let's see. Jedi Knight and friend to Captain Solo writes, love Solo so much, it deserves a better fate. Can't believe a Star Wars film will lose money. I've liked 3 out of 4 of the new films, but Kathleen Kennedy needs to go. Yeah, I'm not going to go into the whole Kathleen Kennedy. I put up a video the other day. Hey, look, I am a fan of Kathleen Kennedy, and I'm unapologetic about that. When Steven Spielberg, the best filmmaker of all time, says that somebody is the best producer they've ever worked with, and when George Lucas handpicks that same person to be the one to run Lucasfilm after him, you'd have to be an idiot not to acknowledge, oh, that person must really know what they're doing. However, you can be a super smart person, you can be really good at your job, and then you can find yourself in a position that isn't quite the right fit. I was completely on board with Kathleen Kennedy running Lucasfilm. Like a lot of people, I cheered it, and I've given her the benefit of the doubt for a long time. In and out. Now, you guys know, for you guys who watch me for any period of time, I have been concerned about the director stuff, about the fact that she can't seem to be on the same page with directors. I've expressed that every single time a new director got fired. But as I explained on the John Campea show, I had waited, what I've really been waiting for the last number of months is I've been waiting for Kathleen Kennedy to take a leadership role and to come out and say something and address something, do something to try to mend the massive rift that's happening in the Star Wars fandom. Now, the sexists and the racists and the homophobes, I could give 2 shits about them. Let them rot. I don't care. But the fact of the matter is, the majority of people that are going on this side and the majority of people are going on this side aren't the sexist, racists, and homophobes. Yes, those people exist. There's no getting around it. But just ignore those assholes. Who cares about them? But the fact of the matter is, then you're left with this the biggest chunk, the big, huge chunk of the Star Wars fandom, and they're being divided. And we have not seen, I have been waiting for 6 months for Kathleen Kennedy to step up, be a leader, and address it, to try to do something. Well, John, what's she supposed to do? Look, that's why she's got the big job. That's why she is the head of Lucasfilm and has all these executives around her and blah, blah, blah. That's for her to come up with what to do. But what we've gotten from Kathleen Kennedy has been pure damning silence. As a 40-year-old Star Wars fandom, well, more than 40, for heaven's sakes, as a 45-plus-year-old Star Wars fandom continues to fall apart, and to be divided more than at any time in its history, far more than even during the prequel era. Because in the prequel era, Star Wars' fandom's opinion was diverse. Like, a bunch of people hated the prequels, some people liked it, but I never felt like the fandom itself was breaking apart. Sure, everybody in the fandom had different points of view on the prequels, but I never sensed the vicious, toxic, visceral kind of stuff that we have seen happening now. And the fact that Kathleen Kennedy, who I admire, who I respect, who, again, if George Lucas and Steven Spielberg hold her in that high regard, that's good enough for me. All that kind of stuff. And I think she will go on to do other great things in Hollywood. She's going to be she is a great Hollywood executive. But this position and her has not ended up being a good fit. It just hasn't ended up being a good fit. With all the director drama, that was one of the biggest things to me, was all the director drama. With the stuff that she's just remained completely silent, while all this, like, it's been on her watch that we're seeing this massive divide, and now it's on her watch that we're going to get the one true box office failure in the Star Wars history with Solo, under her watch. Now, granted, credit where it's due. She also oversaw the previous 3 movies, which made $4.5 billion. That's nothing to sneeze at. But yeah, for me, it's been about waiting and waiting to see how she was going to address the fracturing of the Star Wars fan base, and her way to address it has been to not address it. To me, that's not leadership. And that was the final straw for me, to go, you know what? Kathleen's great. And she's a smart movie executive, all the respect in the world for her. But she's not the right person for this job. And I'm certainly not either, but I mean, it is what it is. So, and it is too bad, because Solo is a good enough movie to warrant having better box office. It's a good movie. It's a fun movie. But hey, it is what it is. Lawrence Reed writes, what did you think of them playing the Imperial March during the recruitment video in the movie? I thought it was great. I thought it was great. It was consistent. We've seen that happen in the video games as well. So them playing, because that is the Imperial theme. Bum, 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 bum. It's the Imperial March. So yes, I liked it. And like I said, because it's consistent, I've seen them do that in the video games as well. So I thought it was a really nice little throw in there. Worked great for me. I enjoyed it a lot. Alexander Helmer writes, Maul more likely to appear in Kenobi or Fett movie? Again, I don't think so. Because here's what you gotta do. If you're making a Kenobi and a Fett movie, you need to focus in on those movies. And you need to make their characters the focus of the movie and build your movie accordingly. You don't start going, oh, let's just take random things from these other movies and just start throwing them in there too. That's the recipe for a disaster. Now, the counter argument to that, though, is, well, time out. What if the Maul and Qi'ra thing was the plan to attach to a Fett or a Kenobi movie the whole time? What if that was always the plan? That's different. That would be different. So what I don't think they should do is just go, oh, well, it's a shame it didn't work in that movie. Let's just grab that and throw it into this other movie. That's the recipe for disaster. But if you could make the argument it was always the plan, like the plan for Maul, because as one of the other viewers said a little bit earlier, right? You can't have Han ever come across Maul. That makes no sense canonically. That wouldn't make sense. So what if it was always the plan to introduce the Maul Qi'ra thing there, and then have that be an important part of one of the other movies coming out, and that was the plan the whole time? That's what they've built that story around. If that's the case, it's a completely different situation. I could totally see it happening. Is that the case? I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe it is. Because, like the other viewer said, this got me thinking now. What if the fact of the matter is that you never could have Han Solo come across Darth Maul anyway, because that's contrary to what we know about Solo once we get to A New Hope. So maybe the plan was never to use Qi'ra and Maul in a future Solo 2. Maybe the plan has always been that's the setup for the Obi-Wan movie. Or that's the setup for the Boba Fett movie. If that's the case, yeah, I could be convinced of that. That would be kind of great, actually. I would be all on board if that was the plan the whole time. I don't want them now to just desperately become like, oh no, let's just react. Oh, let's just take that and throw it into this movie that we never planned on having it in there anyway. That's the only thing I don't want to see happen. Lawrence Reed writes, why'd they have Han speak Wookiee? Why not? No, really. I mean, I'm not trying to dodge the question, but honestly, why not? What's the compelling reason that he shouldn't or wouldn't? It would make sense that the first time he encounters this thing, if you know its language, speak its language. Now, after that, he's familiar with Chewie. He's perfectly comfortable just speaking basic. That's what English is called in the Star Wars universe. He's perfectly comfortable just speaking in basic, and that's fine. But his first encounter with this thing, this giant barbarian of a creature that's going to kill him, if you think you can speak to him in his own language, then by anything you think that'll make him stop, you do it. So, on top of that, to me, it becomes, the question shouldn't be why they have Han speak Wookiee. Why not? It makes sense. Especially in that particular scene when you understand the circumstances. If Han knows the language, he would speak it in that moment. Anything to slow down this giant creature that's looking to rip your arms off and eat you, maybe. Right? So, yeah, that's why I think it makes perfect sense. GGB writes, what is your favorite Easter egg in the movie? Mine is the idol from Raiders that can be seen in Dryden's office. I didn't see it. I've seen the movie 3 times and I haven't seen it, but you're damn right now I'm going to look for it. The next time I go see this movie, I'll be looking for it. There were a couple of really good ones. The fact that Bennett wore Lando's mask from Return of the Jedi, that was great. I guess Warwick Davis's weasel, that's not really an Easter egg. That's just a cameo, so I guess that doesn't count. I don't know. I'd have to think. Like, obviously, the one that stands out to me most is the mask that Bennett wears, but I have not seen that Raiders of the Lost Ark idol, and now I'm going to be obsessed with watching this movie now until I see that damn idol. So thank you very much, GGB, for putting that on my radar. Now I know what to look for when I go in there and watch the movie again. Thanks for that. All right. Michael Solaric writes, agree 100% with you on the opening crawl. Yeah, that's the thing, especially. I was going to be bothered. Let's just be honest with you. I was going to be bothered with them not having an opening crawl regardless. But when you start the movie with no opening crawl, but you start it with text on the screen anyway, you know what it made me feel like? It made me feel like Dopinder in Deadpool 2. Like, Dopinder, like, you're not a hero, you don't have the skills, blah, you cannot be on our team. And then they're interviewing Peter. I've got no skills, I just thought it sounded like fun. You're in. And then Dopinder in the back. Fuck! That's what I felt like. It's like, you're not doing an opening crawl, but then you're showing opening text anyway. And I felt like Dopinder in the background going, fuck! That's what I felt like. Anyway, makes no sense to me. Rick Cruz writes, how many years before episode 4 is Solo? I'd say 15. I thought I heard people say it's about 10, actually. I thought it was said that it was 10. I haven't paid much attention to it, to be honest with you. But anywhere between 10 and 15 makes perfect sense to me. David Tapla writes, I like how in Spain the name of the film is Han Solo. Well, I vastly prefer that title to Solo, a Star Wars story. All I think about after that is just a Twilight story. It just reminds me of Twilight too much. A Star Wars story. I've always hated that. Always hated it. That's why whenever you hear me talk about Solo, or when I'm putting the titles of my videos, I just call it Solo, or I call it Star Wars Solo. I refuse to call it Solo, a Star Wars story. I know some of you don't like Star Wars Solo either. That's fine. But it works for me, and that's why I'm going with it. Diego Cordova writes, Emilia Clarke had the best performance. Opinions? I think Alden Ehrenreich had the best performance. To be honest with you, I thought Emilia Clarke was very good. But I thought Alden, I thought Donald Glover, and hell, I'll say it, I thought Woody Harrelson's performances were even better. And that's no knock on Emilia Clarke's performance. I thought she was solid. But I think I was bought in even more to those other 3 characters, to be honest with you. But I'm glad that her performance worked so well for you. That's great. Because I thought she was quite strong in the movie. I really did. Mike McHale writes, I thought how he got his last name was so lame. Yeah, again, did not work for me. Didn't hate it. Didn't make me lose sleep. Didn't keep me up at night. But yeah, it just was something that did not work for me either. Okay, guys. I got about I'll take about another 5 minutes and then we're going to wrap up. But listen, guys, if you've sent in a live question and I did not get to it, don't worry. I will do a solo spoiler discussion part 2 video, just getting your questions that got sent in that I don't have time to. Okay, so I'm going to keep going here for a few more minutes, but then we're going to cut it off. All right. Lawrence Reed writes, my father thought his name was Hans Solo. Slightly related to Hans Gruber from whatever. That's, I can see why though. I can see why. You got H-A-N, and then the very next letter is an S anyway, so I could totally see how that would be the case. Somebody who didn't like follow Star Wars as religiously as a lot of us do, I could totally see how that would happen. Matt Thornton writes, I highly doubt a Solo sequel will happen. Yeah, no kidding. But another Star Wars anthology movie with a different protagonist that strongly connects to Solo, I'm in. Possibly, again, you know me, I want movies that go forward, not backwards. I'm so sick and tired of going backwards in time to tell stories. Start moving forward. Start expanding the universe. That's just me. Now, don't get me wrong. Obi-Wan comes out, I'll be there opening day because it's a Star Wars movie. Boba Fett comes out, I'll be there opening day because it's a Star Wars movie. Sure. But what I would rather them do is expand the universe and move forward. But that's just my own particular point of view. RA's Reviews writes, I thought the Lando droid relationship was silly. I quite liked it. I did. I quite liked it. And when you understand droid's role in the galaxy at that point, it kind of made sense. And it also kind of makes sense to me that Lando, the only person he would trust, being a swindler himself, right? Because you've heard it said thieves never trust anybody. Being a swindler and a con man himself, it strikes me that this character, Lando, would have a hard time trusting anybody because he himself is a swindler, right? It seems to make sense to me that if he was going to have a partner kind of relationship to somebody that he could trust, it seems to me it would be a droid. So, yeah, I got to say it worked for me. Like sometimes the L3 character herself came across kind of silly and made me roll my eyes, and it made Lando roll his eyes too. For sure. But I thought the connection between the two of them made sense to me. When you understand the Lando character, it would make sense that his strongest attachment would probably be to a droid. Like I said, to me it makes sense. That doesn't mean I'm right, though. But I'm just saying that's just kind of the way that I looked at it. Zach Clayton Douglas writes, I like the idea of using Maul, but I thought the way they used him was too much fan service using the lightsaber. I also thought the CGI looked bad. I didn't think the CGI looked bad at all. But again, I agree, the lighting of the lightsaber was too much. You know, I addressed that a little bit earlier in the video. I thought that at that point it was too much. It almost felt like, hey, for those of you guys who haven't gotten the hint that this is Darth Maul, and he turns on the lightsaber. See, he's Darth Maul. Yeah, we got it. He's Darth Maul. So I didn't feel like, when you understand the backstory, him being there is not fan service. It makes sense. The lighting of the lightsaber was too much, though. I'm with you on that. I am completely with you on that. It's really something they should not have done. If they really wanted the lightsaber on in there, he should have had it with him turned on when his transmission started. Now, I get that takes away the reveal of him pulling back his cloak. Okay, I get that. But it would have worked a lot better than just for no reason reaching out his hand, using the Force to bring the lightsaber to himself and then turn it on for no reason at all. You know? So I do not think Maul's appearance was fan service at all. Like some other people are mentioning, it actually caused confusion for some people. Like for some people, for them, it was a point of confusion. So I don't think it was fan servicing, but the turning on of the lightsaber, absolutely, that was poor decision. Bad fan servicing there. Let's see, Michael Solaric writes, I kind of want to see a Star Wars movie done by Ron Howard without all the drama that went down with Lord Miller. I think he earned it after Solo. Well, he earned whatever it is they're going to get him. He had to walk in. Think about this. Having to reshoot a movie that was already 85% of the way shot without being given an extension on the release date. And Ron Howard walked in like a boss and got that thing under control. That doesn't mean everybody needs to like the movie, but when you consider what he did, walked into a movie that was already 85% of the way shot, recasting a couple of roles, practically reshooting the whole thing, and never having the release date moved, what Ron Howard did is the job of a titan. Ron Howard is a titan. And whatever it is that Disney and Lucasfilm promised him, if he would come in and save Solo, whatever it is they promised him, it will be well worth it. Now, I don't know this. This is all speculation. My guess is that he's like, okay, I'll come in and do this Solo movie under these impossible circumstances, but I've got this and this project that I've been really wanting to get done. You guys got to produce these and distribute them. And they probably went, okay, done. So whatever it is, I'm sure. I don't know if we'll ever see him do another Star Wars movie again, though. I don't know if he'll want to deal with that crap. Let's see. Cameron W. writes, is the Maul reveal a sign that Lucasfilm was overly confident that Solo would make enough to warrant a sequel? The reveal seems like a waste now. Well, I don't think so. Even if they don't go anywhere, to me, it was still a great reveal. It was still a great reveal. And as we've kind of started to hypothesize during this show, it may be that that whole setup was for another movie altogether anyway. So, and look, when your last 3 movies in a row all make over $1 billion, I don't think planning or opening the door for a potential chapter 2 is overconfidence. Like when you're a movie that's when you're a first film in a franchise and you do that, maybe that's a little bit of overconfidence. When you're a Star Wars film, the last 3 have all made over $1 billion. It's not overconfidence to just open a little bit of a door at the end to say, hey, this opens the way for a new chapter, but it doesn't rely. It's not like they didn't properly end the first Solo movie and you have to do a sequel. It's not like that. They just opened a little door that they could go through or not. But then again, as we've been discussing, that Maul thing may not have been for Solo 2. It might be the opening of the door for an Obi-Wan movie or for a Boba Fett movie. Now, how they would do that, I don't know. I don't know what their plans are, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, last question I'll take today, and then don't worry, guys. All the other live questions that have come in, I will take them. I will put them in a document, and in the next couple of days, I will do a part 2 to this video, just addressing the questions that you guys already sent in. But this last one comes to us from Christian Renteria, who writes, Solo was good. I liked it a lot. But they need a roadmap, not just for movies, but where they pace them. Also, I totally agreed with you on Kathleen Kennedy. Dave Filoni should have a chance to run. He's Lucasfilm. No. Oh, fuck no. No. It is absolutely confounding to me that there are people out there calling for Dave Filoni. First of all, I don't even like his show, Clone Wars, but I acknowledge that a lot of people did. I thought Rebels, I like Rebels, but it was hit and miss. Dave Filoni's Clone War movie was a complete, utter disaster, and I like Dave Filoni. It absolutely confounds the imagination that there are people who think, you know who the best person is to run this studio that makes these big live-action movies? Somebody who's never made a live-action movie. Yeah, that's a great idea. I don't understand that. I get it that you know Dave Filoni's name, and I get it that you may like some of the animation he's done. But to go from being a mid-level director of animated stuff to the head executive of a live-action motion picture company that also does some animation stuff like that, and to take that and put it in the hands of somebody who's never made a live-action film, that's who you want as the head of your studio? Now, I'm not saying I could never get to that point, but look, and I've been asking, look, let Dave Filoni start directing. Like, show me that Dave Filoni even knows how to make a live-action movie himself first before making him the chief executive of a company. Because he did a couple of cartoon shows and a horrible cartoon movie to make him the head of Lucasfilm? Something that is primarily a live-action feature film company when he has never produced a live-action film? I get you know his name. I get that. I get that you know his name. Therefore, you're just looking for a name that you recognize. But there have got to be 500 other people out there who are highly skilled, trained movie executives that would do a much better job. No. To me, I mean, if you feel like that's the way, I respect that you want it that way. I'm just expressing why I do not agree. I do not agree that the person you go out to get to be the head of this big, massive company who, that primarily makes all these big live action films is going to get a guy who doesn't know the first thing about making a live action film because he's never done it. And I like Dave Filoni. Don't get me wrong. I've put up pictures of me with Dave Filoni online. I'm a fan of Dave Filoni, but I'm also a big fan of Sidney Crosby of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't want him being the head of Lucasfilm either. I don't want him being the head of Lucasfilm either. Even though I love him and I think he's a super guy, I don't want him as the head of Lucasfilm. So I just do not understand people with this Peter Pan-like idea that, well, since I know him and I like this cartoon show he did, he should be the president of the United States. Like, I don't get that myself personally. Personally, I think there are probably 20 very, very good people who could step in and do this job, and they're names that we don't even know. You didn't know who Kevin Feige was. You'd never heard his name before. But he was a gifted, talented executive, and he got a position, and he ran with it because he's gifted and talented in that. Dave Filoni's not the guy. He's not. There's no evidence he even knows how to be an executive. There's no evidence of that at all. There's no evidence he knows the first thing about making live action films. There's no evidence of that at all. And we want that to be the next head of Lucasfilm? I don't see it. Talk to me again in 7 or 8 years after somebody gives him the opportunity to make a couple of live action films, maybe take a slightly more senior role. Like right now, you'd be promoting him 6 levels. It's like somebody who plays second base on a baseball team and then making him president of Major League Baseball. Well, maybe there's some lower executive levels. Let him build up to that. Give him a chance to, first of all, make some live action films, then make him a vice president of the company, then maybe make him a senior vice president, and then maybe after a few years give him that thing to go, oh, we like him. Let's make him the head executive. I don't understand that. But, mine is not the opinion that matters. Everybody else's is. And I know there's a lot of people out there that see it. I just, for the life of me, I can't wrap my head around why. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. Okay, guys, that will do it for this installment of our Star Wars spoiler discussion. Again, there are a bunch of questions still left to get to. I will take all those questions and I will do them in a part 2 video that won't be live, obviously, because I'm not going to take any more live questions, but I'm going to get through all these in the next couple of days. Keep your eyes open for that. Thank you guys for joining me here today and indulging me as we do this little solo discussion review. Remember, don't forget, make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter, simply @Jon Campea. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Whether you love Solo, hated Solo, agreed with everything I said, or disagreed with everything I've said, I'm glad you're here and we're being fellow film fans together. That's the best part of it. All right, guys, thanks for being here. My name's Jon Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.